an all-new Dr. Phil.
My son Cameron has major anger issues.
That's why I called 911 and I will again.
Police have been called to our house multiple times.
He took scissors to his hair and started cutting off all his hair. The police handcuffed him and took him to a mental hospital.
So what did his parents do?
I bought Cameron a plane ticket.
A one-way ticket to L.A.
We're trying to just get some peace.
I was desperate.
The kid is clearly in meltdown.
Right.
He's shaving his head. The cops have come, and you dump him out in L.A.? Today's going to be a changing day in your life. You've never had anybody working harder to bring you to the threshold of change than right now. Just 18 days ago, Bart and Sarah bought their 21-year-old son, Cameron, a one-way plane ticket to Hollywood to pursue his musical dreams. Well, that wasn't the only reason. They say they needed Cameron to calm down after a blistering, paranoid tirade in which he claimed he needed to leave town immediately to escape some dangerous criminals. Listen to this.
Get the away from me right the now or I'm calling 911. Say one more word and I'm calling 911 right now. That's it. I don't understand. Stop talking to me right now. I'm gonna flip out like you've never seen it. I'm not a harm to myself or anyone around me. I will call 911 right now.
But Cameron's Hollywood dreams, well, they quickly turned into a nightmare, and that is not unusual. 5 days after arriving, he was kicked out of his friend's house and began wandering the streets of L.A. aimlessly, becoming dehydrated, disoriented, and claims he was repeatedly blacking out. Now, in fact, somehow Cameron wound up wandering onto the tarmac at LAX. Right, I mean, just right out on where the planes are, and passing out on someone's front lawn, ultimately. Now, when Cameron woke up, he found himself in a mental health hospital with his parents by his side.
My son Cameron has major anger issues.
Get the away from me right now.
He rages, swears at us, calls us names.
Stop talking to me.
He just will say the nastiest, meanest, hurtful thing that pops into his head.
Both are functioning alcoholics and drug users.
You're the worst. You're not my real father. I hope you die. He goes into this rage, and it's almost like this red mist goes in front of his eyes. Cameron's behavior has created quite a toxic environment in our home. The police have been called to our house multiple times. Cameron himself has called the police a couple of times. He's developed this sort of, I want to call it paranoia or fear that there's people after him. Who's going to kill you?
I have a list. That's why I made statements. That's why I called 911 and I will again.
Before Cameron left for LA, he was in a full mental episode. He was paranoid. He stayed up all night, didn't even really sleep during the day. He took scissors to his hair and started cutting off all his hair so that he could be unrecognizable. The police came, and then he got very angry at them and started yelling at them, and he was out of control. So they took him and handcuffed him and took him to a mental hospital. When Cameron got out of the hospital, Cameron said he wanted to go up to LA. He wanted to get a job and pursue something in music, which is what he loves to do. I bought Cameron a plane ticket, and he packed his bags with hardly any clothes, a lot of music equipment, and he headed out to LA. Within a week, Cameron was lost and was taken to the hospital by ambulance.
My son was wandering the streets of Los Angeles and Hollywood for 24 hours.
I thought he was dead. A man called me and said, I found your son passed out on a lawn. He said he's called an ambulance. He told me what hospital Cameron was going to be at, and I begged the man to please tell Cameron I'm coming out there. When I first saw Cameron in the hospital, all he did was sit slumped over, staring at the ground or staring at a wall. I'm too afraid to have him back home with us right now.
If he just comes back after all these incidents we've had out in California, I would be scared.
Well, Bart, Sarah, I'm really glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
I truly am.
Thank you.
You guys are just worn out, right? He's just
Definitely.
worn you to a frazzle.
Yes.
Yes,
Bart, this is not your biological son,
that's correct.
but as far as you're concerned, he is your son.
Yes.
And you adopted him at a young age, and to you, you're 100% in, and you have no doubts of that whatsoever.
None. No, he's been wonderful.
And he said horrible things to his mother. You said he says the worst things imaginable. He said he hopes you die, hopes you both die, and that he would just on your grave.
Basically,
to
yeah,
quote him.
I'll spit on your grave. I won't be at your funeral, you know.
Okay, I'm really trying to understand what your thought process was in buying him a one-way ticket to LA, because the kid is clearly in meltdown.
Right.
He's shaving his head. The cops have come. It's not like, gee, Mom, Dad, I've planned an itinerary. Here's my plan when I get there. This is the budget I've worked out. I have a job lined up. I have this, I have that. You put him on a one-way ticket to Hollywood when he is clearly incapacitated, clearly out of control, and you dump him out in LA? I'm having a hard time
know.
understanding what the hell were you thinking?
Good question. It was more me. He's been like this for so many years. And he had a friend out here. He was going to get a job and stuff. And at this point, I was like, you're 21. You're scaring your little sisters. You're making everyone miserable. We don't sleep at night. You know, he doesn't sleep at all. It was almost, I was desperate.
And hearing you explain it, Dr. Phil, you're right. It sounds crazy. It sounds uncaring. It sounds, but we're trying to just get some peace in the household. And he is 21. I know he's not in a position. And over the last 18 days, it's been very apparent that that was probably a mistake.
We didn't know he
Sending
was,
him. You know, we didn't know his.
he didn't have the delusions he has now. But, you know, it's been 5 rehabs, therapy, outpatient, hospital stays.
So you get a call from a man who found Cameron on the front lawn at 3 a.m.
Yes, that's the second call. I got a woman called me in the afternoon. He was in Culver City at some restaurant car wash. She said, I just felt I needed to stop. He looked young. It didn't look like he belonged on the streets. Fed him, called an ambulance. He went to the hospital and checked himself out.
Well, by the way, that is an astounding happening.
I thank God every day.
You have to have some theory as to why all of this is happening. You guys have spent over $100,000 on rehabs, treatments, just all the kinds of things that you've done, which is a tremendous sacrifice on y'all's part. As a couple, you have 2 other children, but you've stepped up and made the sacrifices. You've written the checks. You've done without other things to provide for him. Very dedicated, loving, and caring. You had to have a theory. What was it that brought all this on?
I think it was, he's had mental illness. He always doesn't think highly of himself, never really did. And that he used drugs to make him feel better and not have to think.
Yeah, but why do you think this is an abandonment issue because his dad left? Do you think
Sometimes I think that. Sometimes I think it's just mental illness does run in the family.
Before I got in the picture, he had a brain injury. He fell when he was 2 on a hard floor. His brain swelled up and
fell from the basement stairs?
Yep.
10
onto
feet
the
down,
floor,
yeah, and landed on top of his head and flopped back, and his head just swelled up, and he had bleeding on the brain. He's still got a little scar on the side of his head.
Did you do neurologics to?
I tried to get doctors to do it. I even went as far as taking him to the ER and saying, I need to see a neurologist. I need to get his head checked out. And they said, you need a referral. And it's not so easy to get help.
You go and say, this child had a brain bleed at 2 years of age and is showing erratic behavior. I want a neurological workup. And they'd go, no, no, no.
No, I guess I never said I want a neurological workup. I just would say he had a brain bleed, a traumatic brain injury, as they called it, and he's had concussions.
You have no idea how many times people look at erratic behavior, look at paranoid behavior, delusional behavior, hallucinatory behavior, explosive behavior, lack of impulse control, which are all parts of certain mental illnesses, and they ascribe these things to mental illnesses and discount the brain part of this, the medical part of this, not the mental illness part of this, but the neurological part of this. And if it is neurological, all the talking therapy in the world can't talk someone's brain back to health if you don't do the things that are necessary from a neurologic standpoint if there's brain damage. Now, Sarah and Bart say their son's paranoia is getting increasingly worse, and his new thing is to call the police on himself because he wants them to protect him from who he imagines is coming after him to harm him, kill him, hurt him. So he's calling the cops on himself. In fact, 2 days before leaving for L.A., they say Cameron shaved off all of his hair before police were able to finally calm him down. Well, we'll meet Cameron after the break.
I absolutely have a huge anger problem. I'm rude and I'm a spoiled brat. I have spit in my stepfather's face before. I'm glad I left home.
And later,
it's just hypocrisy. I don't want to.
We're against him, and we're trying
You
to
truly-
we're trying to work with you. Save you, Cameron.
Cameron dropped out of high school, and we signed him up for an alternative school where he went and did it online. Then Cameron started fighting us about getting up every morning. The principal from the school even came to get him out of bed to try to help us, which is humiliating that we can't control our son.
He just wasn't going to class. We'd yell and scream at him, and he would ignore us. And, you know, short of physically dragging him out of bed, I mean, we couldn't do that. He just flat out refused to go. And he's basically lived in our home, in his bedroom.
If I was in the right mindset and like had an opportunity to just sit down and breathe some fresh air without people yelling at me or stepping on my toes, then I think I would have graduated.
Cameron says he is sick and tired of feeling like a total loser. That's his words, in quotes, total loser. That's how he sees himself, looks at himself. He says that his crippling anxiety, depression, out-of-control anger has stopped him from graduating high school, stopped him from getting a job. He says it's really stopped him from getting any traction in life at all. He has even written to-do lists for himself. Anyway, take a look.
I'm an ass. I'm rude and I'm a spoiled brat.
I have a list. That's why I made statements.
I absolutely have a huge anger problem.
That's why I called 911 and I will again.
My anger is like carbonation. Like you shake it for a while and then at one point I just kind of combust. I have spit in my stepfather's face before and I've called them every name.
Oh my God.
Told them they can burn in hell. Yeah, I say some things that are verbally abusive here and there, but like, I'm human and I make mistakes. My stepdad, Bart, he provokes me absolutely, and he knows it.
I'm not getting killed. I am about to get killed and I put that on my life or I'll die of a heart attack right now.
I'm glad I left home. I left Florida because I kept getting threats in regards to people coming to our house. I think they were trying to kill me. I came to LA to visit a friend at his apartment and just hang out. I was just stepping on his toes and they just wanted me out. I threw my bag in a bush and I was out. I walked the streets for hours. It was as if I was sleepwalking. I got a ride to LAX. There were no workers and I didn't know what to do, so I kind of was already panicking. I looked to the left, like the only other person there went out that door, so I said, you know, like, oh well. Opened it. Somehow I was on the airfield. A bunch of cops came. They let me go, and then yeah, I was off on a little journey again. I was just trying to find a place to safely sleep and like a cut where I wouldn't get robbed. The next thing I knew, yeah, my mother was at the hospital with me. My life is a total mess, and I have not and still don't really know how to fix it.
Well, Cameron, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It's been a pretty rough ride in L.A.
Yeah.
And you've been out here how long now?
A couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a ticket to go back to Florida?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
But you didn't use the ticket at all?
I couldn't.
They wouldn't let you on?
It was just too complicated, and too much was going on, and I was obviously pretty stoned or something.
Is this when you wandered out onto the tarmac?
Yeah.
You came out here with some gear.
Yes, sir.
For music, right?
Yes.
And you hid all of that stuff so you didn't have to carry it all the time.
In a bush.
And so it did get stolen.
I assume so, yes.
It's not in the bush anymore.
No, it's not. So, yeah, it got stolen.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
Now, you said you felt like you had to get out of Florida because
I just felt threatened.
somebody was after you?
No, I just felt threatened, and we don't get along at all. Sometimes we do, but most of the time we do not, especially under the same roof.
Well, I heard you saying that people would come to the house if you were there, and you thought that they wanted to kill you.
Well, it sounds like I'm extra paranoid, but some people do not like me.
So why'd you shave your head?
Florida's humid, and I wanted change.
Cameron says he wishes he could control his anger, but he says, like a soda, you shake him, he's going to explode. He says that Bart in particular makes him incredibly angry at times. We'll talk about that after the break.
You tripping on acid right now?
No.
I liked to mix uppers and downers and anything I could get my hands on because I wanted to feel good. I would just do drugs all night and then sleep all day and miss school.
We realized the drugs were out of control, and that's when we sent him to rehab.
Cameron says when he was 16, he was an absolute drug monster, mixing uppers with downers, psychedelics with opiates, and overdosing twice. He says none of the 5 rehabs worked because he always, and I quote, returned to my lame room in my lame house. Now, his parents say his house is not the problem.
My son Cameron is a drug addict. One time Cameron was high on something and he passed out and hit our wood coffee table. The whole right side of his face was swollen and cut.
You tripping on acid right now? Is that the $120 buy a sheet of acid so you can deal and distribute it?
When we moved to Florida his junior year is when the drugs took over.
I started kind of just smoking weed here and there, and then I started drinking, and then it started like with pills, like opiates. I liked at the time to mix uppers and downers and anything I could get my hands on because I wanted to feel good. The drugs started using me rather than me using them. After a while, I lacked all self-control and would do anything in order to get the substances I wanted. I'm used to being on drugs and just being numb and burning every bridge so that they don't talk to me. I would just do drugs all night and then sleep all day and miss school. And then when I'd see my family during the day, I would be rude to them.
We realized the drugs were out of control, and that's when we sent him to rehab.
I've been to like 5 or 4 rehabs, maybe more, and it helps some people, but I would always relapse.
My husband Bart and I have spent well around $100,000 sending Cameron to different rehabs, therapies, any program we could get to help him. I definitely feel we want him sober more than he does.
Okay, what were y'all talking about during the tape piece?
You don't want to be in our life. Us in our life.
No, you're putting words in my mouth again. It's just hypocrisy. I don't want to
We're
talk.
against him, and we're trying
You
to
truly-
we're trying to work with you. Save you, Cameron.
What's your frustration right now?
My frustration is that they drink in excess. Okay. Yeah, and then in reality, they are always just putting everything on me, yelling at me.
Am I to understand that you say this is kind of like the pot calling the kettle black?
Absolutely.
That they do what you do, they just don't get the attention for it?
Yeah, I
And
think
so they
that's
point
what
the
it
finger
is.
at you
Yeah.
when everybody's kind of doing some of the same self-destructive things, is what
Yeah,
you're saying?
I completely. Yeah, that's what I think. I could be. I could be wrong.
But the point I've made to Cameron is we're all adults. I said the difference is we're living and leading a life. We're running a family. We're working. We're doing what you're supposed to do in life. And whether we drink or not, we can control our emotions. We can control our actions and still do what we need to do to live a productive life. And I even told Cameron, I mean, this is probably hyperbole and maybe not the most father of the year thing to say, but at some point I said to Cameron, look, if you graduate from high school and get a job and are progressing, I don't care if you smoke pot, but you're not doing any of that. You're not, and that's probably not the right thing to say, but you're not progressing. And I think this is part of the problem.
Yeah, you have no idea how wrong that is to say.
He drinks himself to sleep every night.
Cameron, he doesn't even drink during the week.
I mean, you
All
can't
you
sniffle around this kid without him being like, oh, your pupils are big. Why are you sniffling?
Sorry, I'm
Stop.
observant.
What do you want? Forget them, forget anybody else, authority figures, whatever. Care about that.
Yeah.
I've got sons.
Yeah.
We've got 2 boys. One of them's in music, and we've been very committed to them doing what they want to do. I want to know what you want to do.
To be honest, I don't. I love music. I think it's my calling. I love film, but I don't know. I'm only 21. I was born in 1999, and like I understand that they say I have problems and all, but there's levels to it, and I've really been trying to change in a positive manner. So I don't know what I fully want to do with my life yet, but I have plenty of time to make that conscious decision.
Yeah. But on a 1 to 10, with 10 being absolute fulfillment and 1 being just not happy at all with how things are going,
Yes, sir.
where would you rate your life experience right now?
I'd put it at a 9 because like the past few days have been like fantastic, but I'm pretty miserable. So
Day to day, you rate it a 9 out of 10. Like at home.
oh, at home, it could be in the negatives. Like
Like
I've
negative 9?
Yeah,
Yeah.
at home, yeah.
So at home,
negative.
you're not happy.
Most of the time, I'm not happy. Most of the time, I'm miserable and want out. Yes.
Okay, but that's what I'm asking. And just overall, and forget your parents. You're 21.
Yeah.
So
thank
you're
you.
not. You don't
Thank
have to.
you.
You don't have to dance for them.
Yeah,
anymore.
I don't.
You don't have to do anything they want you to do.
Thank you.
They
Yeah,
don't
you're
get a
right.
vote. It's up to you to do whatever you want to do.
Yes.
You're your life manager.
Finally.
To me, I look at it and say, if I was managing my life to the point that I was wandering the streets of LA with no food, no money, no job, I wasn't pursuing my passion of music, people were stealing my stuff, I was winding up in mental hospitals, the cops were after me, I would
misery.
say I need a new manager.
Yeah. Well,
So how are you doing as a life manager? I mean, how do you
not
rate
that
yourself?
great. Like,
But you say it's a 9?
I shouldn't be here right now.
Where
I
should
meant in
you
the
be?
past 2 days, it's been a 9.
Overall,
I shouldn't
not a
be
9.
alive right now, times 10.
Yeah. Because of
It is what it
overdose
is.
and
Just because of life and experiences and occurrences and
what
yeah.
what's made the last 2 days a 9?
just, I don't know. Well, we all know. People have been giving an arm and leg to just make me feel good for once. And these past weeks, months, I've felt
Well, we
pretty good.
we try to take good care of our
and you,
guests out here.
and
We
you
do.
and I appreciate it.
We have tremendous respect
Means
for
the
you.
world.
We have tremendous respect for you and what you're after, and we want,
Thank you.
really, seriously.
I know, and I appreciate it. And yeah, I know I've said,
No, they've
Some
treated us
bad
very well.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Everybody's been wonderful.
yeah, it means the world.
Now, Sarah says she coddled her son during doing everything for him.
Yeah.
Could that be part of the problem, that he hasn't learned the life skills necessary to create the outcome that he wants? And if not, is that the only thing? Is this mental illness? Is it medical? What's really going on? We're going to delve into that coming up. Sarah admits she has enabled Cameron his entire life.
Absolutely.
She says she's felt badly about the fact that his biological father walked out on him when he was 4 years old, walked out on both of them. All these years later, Cameron says he still struggles with abandonment issues and was triggered when his mom told him he couldn't return to their home in Florida. Now, do you want to return to their home in Florida?
To be completely honest, like, my room was redone and all, and I'm very grateful for that, but it's nothing but toxicity with them. And they're hypocrites. He drinks himself to sleep every night and falls asleep on the patio and nods off whiskey.
Cameron, he doesn't even drink whiskey, and he doesn't even drink during the week. He falls asleep because he's 55, and he gets tired and watches TV too late. I mean, you can't sniffle around this kid without him being like, oh, your pupils are big. Why are you sniffling? And it's...
Sorry, I'm observant.
Okay, but we're talking about you. You don't want to move home.
Whatever is best. I don't know what I want, truly. All I know is I want to know what's wrong with me mentally. If it's not just panic disorder and depression and possibly manic depressive, or who knows, I'm not a doctor. Yeah. But I would love to have a nice relationship with them, but my stepfather provokes me and my mother provokes me, and they drink and smoke and then say that I'm the one that...
We're talking about them again.
Okay. I want to have a nice relationship with them. I want to be level mentally.
Right.
And I want music or film to work out. I just don't specifically know what I truly want.
That's an honest answer. Now, you made a to-do list.
Oh, God.
Which I think is a great thing to do. I mean,
I make too many to-do lists.
Well,
all I do is just
it's a place to start, and then you start working on them. You said on your to-do list, you said GED.
Yes, sir.
And college, maybe psychology, move, get detoxed, make music. So that's a passion for you, right?
Yes,
you really want to get into that. Study. You want to have like 2 film cameras so you can shoot some things and start working on those skills.
It's an invasion of privacy.
This is you when you're thinking of your future and what you want to do. I was proud of finding this, and that's why I shared it. It wasn't meant to be a negative.
Thanks, Bart.
There we go, with the first name.
There's a difference between moving away from your parents and their home versus moving towards something positive.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. You came out here moving away from them as opposed to towards something positive. And I want you moving towards something positive. So why isn't he getting traction? Could all of Cameron's issues be the result of something other than mental illness? Let's talk about that after the break.
I've always thought that Cameron has some brain damage. He had a traumatic brain injury when he was 2 years old. I was in the basement doing laundry. He knew the rule that he could not sit on those stairs. He went to grab the railing and he missed, and he fell 8 to 9 feet and landed right on top of his head.
I've had a lot of concussions and internal bleeding in my brain. I would play basketball and I'd skateboard and I'd hit my head a lot. One time, I was at this kid's apartment. He hit me so hard that I fell onto a chair and I blacked out.
He's had probably 5 or 6 concussions. I've always thought that his injuries to his brain have caused some of his mental illness.
Now, I'd like to add someone to this conversation, someone I consider a really valued friend and colleague, Dr. Daniel Amen. Now, Dr. Amen is a psychiatrist He's a New York Times best-selling author and founder of Amen Clinics with 9 locations across the United States. Now, his clinics have the world's largest database of brain scans for psychiatry, totaling more than 160,000 scans of patients from 150 countries. Dr. Amen has a new book, and it's entitled The End of Mental Illness. And it shows how most psychiatric problems are not mental health issues at all, but rather they are brain health issues that steal your mind. He says, get your brain right and your mind will follow. I'm so frustrated, Dr. Amen, that people default to mental illness when they never look at the neurological underpinnings of some of these behaviors. And you say that perhaps more often than not, that's where you should start looking.
Most psychiatrists never look at the brain. And that is why stigma lives, because we don't see this as a medical illness. We see it as a moral failing. And that's just wrong. And when I started looking at the brain over 30 years ago, it just upended everything. And what I realized is most psychiatric problems, they're not mental, they're brain.
And in this case, you actually did some very sophisticated scans and analysis with Cameron. And Cameron, you've agreed that it's okay for us to discuss that here, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Dr. Amen, if you will, step up here so we can take a look and you can kind of narrate for Cameron what we're talking about.
So SPECT is a study that looks at blood flow and activity. It looks at how your brain works. And it basically shows us 3 things: good activity, too little, or too much. And then our job is to balance it. Here on the left, we're looking at the outside surface of a healthy brain. And then this view shows us the most active areas of the brain. And in the cerebellum, in the back bottom part of the brain, it should have the most activity.
Let's move on to Cameron.
And so, healthy on the left, here's Cameron, and you can see all these holes, crevices, dents, which are a disaster for a young man.
Okay, so this is the healthy image here, and that ties to this image for Cameron now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so what are we looking at there? And Cameron, this is very important for you.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is the front part of his brain. Can I draw on it?
Yes.
The most important part of your brain, it's the largest part of the human brain, focus, forethought, judgment, impulse control, planning, forethought, learning from the mistakes you make, is significantly low in activity and blood flow. And his left temporal lobe, here, underneath your temple, behind your eye, involved in memory, learning, mood stability, temper control, is very damaged. And you can see the left side, which is here, more damage than the right. So I suspect, and here's the left side of his brain, that the injury was on the left side.
Okay, so this is the left here.
And it hurt his brain significantly. And then we did the scan twice.
Okay, we
so
looked at
this
his
was
brain
rest.
at rest. Now here it is active.
And when he concentrates, it's actually better. And that's good news because those holes, your brain, you don't have holes in your brain. What it's showing is low activity.
Okay.
And those areas aren't dead, but they're struggling.
Yeah.
And then when you try to use your brain, it gets better.
So what's to be done here? We'll talk about that after the break. Cameron, what do you think about what Dr. Amen has found and what he's saying in terms of prognosis?
It's scary, but I'm appreciative and grateful, and I assume like my brain can heal.
What can be done, and what can he expect?
So 3 things that are the most important. Number 1, nobody loves their brain because you can't see it. But we can see yours, so I want you to start really loving and caring for it. It got hurt. That wasn't your fault, right? So that's the first step. The second thing is avoid anything that hurts it. And so drugs, alcohol, nicotine, bad food, not sleeping. You can't heal a brain if you keep poisoning it. And then 3, we want you to do regular things that are good for the brain. One of the things I like a lot is hyperbaric oxygen. So we'll find a chamber for you to go in on a regular basis, and that can actually increase blood flow to your brain. I have a list of supplements I want you to take. I did the big NFL study at a time when the NFL was struggling with traumatic brain injury in football. We've scanned 300 NFL players, lots of damage. 80% of my players get better when they do the things. So I have a supplement program, probably some medicine as well.
Yes, sir.
But it's all of those things together over time. You can imagine being 24 and having control over your life because you consistently make better decisions.
This is hugely good news.
Yes.
At many different levels. One, I think you can cross a lot of mental illness off of the chart here. And Cameron, I think that's important for you to know.
Yes, sir.
There's not a lot of,
you.
in my opinion, and I think Dr. Amen would concur with this, there's probably not a lot of mental illness operating independent of what's going on with your brain. I think when the brain gets better, you're going to see a lot of these symptoms that are attributed to or listed under characteristics and traits of the mental illnesses are going to dissipate. And you've offered and are willing to work with Cameron and execute this protocol and get him rolling on the things that need to happen, correct?
We are.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And it's in your hands. And he's offering to help. Will you take it?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Fair enough. Okay, we're out of time. I want to thank all of my guests today, and a special thanks to Dr. Daniel Amen. And again, I want to say his new book is The End of Mental Illness. This is going to change the model about mental illness in America. And this can start with you and how you react. So I highly recommend that if you read a book in the near term, make it The End of Mental Illness. I guarantee you, you will be a lot better informed, and you will be awfully glad that you did. So it's The End of Mental Illness by Dr. Daniel Amen. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. You can find me everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe to Robin's podcast, I've Got a Secret. She's got all kinds of secrets that she discloses there as well from some of the most interesting people in the world. I'm hoping that Dr. Daniel Amen will show up there before very long. We will talk to you soon. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
If you would like to be a part of our virtual audience and you have a computer with a camera, log on to drphil.com and click Be Part of the Audience.